Nintendo! Camelot!
Hello there! This week we're going to continue on this nostalgia train. Working my way up this shelf that I posted a picture of, and holy shit, it's been 5 months. So yeah, 5 months ago I posted a picture of this shelf in my childhood bedroom, and yeah, so this week it's video game time. Some of you may be wondering why I focus on video games. Well, because I like them, that's why. Also, I wasn't quite ready to do a SpongeBob episode. I need more time. Also, I think video games are deeply misunderstood and underappreciated by the general public. Also, mostly I just needed time, like a break between some of the heavier videos coming over the next couple weeks, and hopefully something light. So let's escape through video games for a moment together. This video was somewhat inspired by many others, the many online videos revisiting these games that I used to love. This one guy who visits odd locations in games and figures out things like the employment rate in Hyrule or where the rivers go. Or this guy who talks about Sonic and how it's really relieving for people with autism. Or these brothers who talk about the games they used to play together. And this one guy who talked about his relationship with Mario over time and what it felt like losing connection to his best friend. My heart hurts making this. If you could believe, see, these video games, each one represents a relationship for me, or multiple. You might see an old Mario baseball game, but I see Friday nights and Passover trips with my cousins and old friends, or Saturday mornings and deal with my brother. You might see a magic carp jumping for dear life, or a Clefairy abusing her students, but I remember times just laughing with a friend without much care in the world. You might see a weird Japanese baseball game from 2008, but I see that time where a friend and I made a player together who would go on to hit 264 home runs in one season. Long live Mojo. You might see a classic Paper Mario game, but I see the phone calls in 4th grade to a friend trying to figure this all out together. You might see an old Mario Party game. I see late night sleepovers as a kid and late night hangouts as an adult. Hell, I played this game with my landmates a few weeks ago. It wasn't the same. Yeah, I miss my old friends sometimes. And so, yeah, I'll go through some games I loved, explain some of the joy they brought me, and mourn and grieve, and bask in some of the glorious nostalgia for a bit. You ready? Let's go! Where to begin? Well, how could we not talk about Nintendo, a company that started with love hotels and gambling carts, but had a world-shifting moment when this man, Shigeru Miyamoto, created the first Mario Brothers game in the 1980s, and the rest was history. Fast forward, and it's 1995, and I was born, hey! And around 99, I got my hands on my first Game Boy Color, and got to experience this scene for the first time in Pokemon Red. What a moment, an adventure about to begin. For parents looking in from the outside, it might have looked like the early stages of tech addiction. But for me, it was a world in my pocket. School was boring, and so were a lot of aspects of my day-to-day life. And there were probably a lot of feelings I couldn't fully name at the time, of disconnection, of loneliness, of stuckness. Yes, even as a 4-year-old, part of me felt trapped and had a desire for adventure and freedom. And no, I couldn't leave the house at 4, but there was Pokemon and the Kanto region ready to be explored in my pocket. Was I good? Probably not. But I had a bunch of cool Pokemon, and I defeated monsters and earned gym badges and explored caves and tolerated Zubats and watched my young Pokemon grow with me and evolve. And I could talk about this with others too, my cousins, brother, friends, and yeah, people were playing. And it was with me on vacations. I can see scenes of me on a Passover trip as a young kid on the beach. But who needed a real ocean when you had a Lapras to ride in your pocket? Or at least the placeholder sprite of one while I wrote a different monster who knew surf. But Right. There were also the great computer games of the 90s. Shout out Putt Putt, Freddy Fish, Pajama Sam, and that one Lego Pizza delivery game. Sometimes I just go to YouTube and find videos of people playing these. It brings me warm feelings to a simpler time in my mind. But yeah, mixed with the cartoons I was watching, these games were fodder for my imagination. An imagination that was always looking for more areas to reach into and expand. I was often described by the adults around me as spaced out or toasted. And for me, I think I was just bored and feeling disconnected to a world that was not very exciting. I mean, it makes sense. The adults around me buried most of their feelings, and I was forced into systems that trained young kids to do the same. Thank you, Yeshiva Flatbush. And so video games for me were a relief, something to look forward to. I wasn't very good. It didn't matter. I loved it. It was a whole world, like a book, but one you could see and actively take part in. You could be the hero, or just alive in the world and enjoying it. You could do whatever you want. It was your game to play. The mysteries, the rumors, like a glitch that could let you catch a Mew, but could also potentially break your whole game and never let you save again. I think this is an important moment to also distinguish between two very different kind of video game experiences, that being the one-player experience and the multiplayer experience. These two are held very different spaces for me and both were very important to me. The one-player games were more like my own personal escapes, where the multiplayer games acted less as escapes and more so like areas and forms of connection with those around me. For example, a game like Mario Party, I'm not usually going to go and play that on my own. I mean, I've done it, but generally that kind of game was that's something that brought me and my friends together, and it was better at doing that than board games. It was alive and colorful and competitive and also random, and there were some hilarious outcomes. Of course, we can't talk about the N64 without talking about Super Mario 64. I was too young to actually be good at this game, but watching a man named Moses, who worked in my grandma's house, beat this game in his free time was epic and fun, and a memory that still sits with me to this day. Thank you, Moses. The paintings on the walls in this game, the worlds to jump into and explore, it just fed my imagination. I would picture portals on the walls of my school during incredibly boring second grade classes, wishing I could just jump right into them like Mario and enter a whole universe. And I would also kind of wish that time would freeze while I was in those worlds. I had a lot of guilt about hurting people I'd leave behind, and that was a theme throughout much of my old fantasies, a desire to leave, but also these feelings of guilt for the people I've hurt through leaving, and that's something that still sits with me to this day. One of my first games I remember actually doing decently well in was called Paper Mario, an old-time classic, and for me, I remember I was so small trying to turn around the giant TV to plug in the red, yellow, and white cables for my Nintendo, and it was the first weekend of summer, and the TV just fell on me, and I was stuck there for a bit. No injury. I think the TV survived too, but yeah, a hell of a memory seared in. I was also too young to even do simple things within the games themselves. I struggled to read instructions. I couldn't really read at that age. And one task asked us to tell time and count to 60 seconds to bake a cake for a fat, shy guy. And I always needed an adult's help with that. What else were housekeepers for? um, it's not missed that many of these games were played in the basement in my house, sharing often space with these staff who were treated as second-class citizens in our home. It was a safe space for me. Of course, given the power dynamic, I was likely often encroaching on their safe space too. But that's a longer conversation for another episode. But yeah, the basement for me was a space away from judgment where I didn't have to worry too much about my dad getting mad, about my friends breaking things or being too loud, where my nervous system could just rest, where we were safe. Now, some of my friends may have misinterpreted me bringing them to the basement as a sign I was embarrassed to have them in my home or something, and that's not completely without merit, but for me, it was more so just a safety and a comfort. This was my space. And running down there after Friday night dinners or Saturday football games or Saturday night sleepovers, all nighters trying to beat Star Fox 64 or Rampage 2 through these buildings. They're just classic moments that bring joy to my heart when I think of them. Fast forward is 2001, and we got a GameCube for Hanukkah. This is a good time to talk about privilege. I was in a position to afford all the newest games as they came out when they came out, whichever ones I wanted. I'd make long lists for my mom to choose from just so I could be surprised when it came to Hanukkah. And this is much more palpable for me now as I'm trying to become self-sustaining, and I'm not sure if the new Switch 2 or Mario Kart World fit into that self-sustaining budget. It was also helpful for a younger me to have understanding or at least indifferent parents towards my video game habits. I knew many parents who restricted their kids just based on the belief that these games were bad for them. Can video games be abused? Certainly. Is violence in video games problematic? Meh, inconclusive, and I was rarely playing violent video games anyway. Also, these classics were not made like many mobile games today, that is, to suck you in with gambling-like tactics and hook miners on microtransactions. No, these were standalone worlds on themselves. You paid up front, and that was it. I remember my dad telling me that he got me a t-shirt with my name all over it. In what may be some telling symptomology of my neurodivergence, I took what he said totally literally and was very disappointed to find the shirt did not actually have the name Morris all over it, but instead this message: Nintendo Rehabilitation Clinic. First step is admitting you have a problem. I love that shirt. It was my number 2 favorite next to this great purple penguin shirt. Okay, where were we? Hunting ghosts in this haunted mansion, actually scary for a 6-year-old me. And what a great analogy for therapy, by the way. That is this game, Luigi's Mansion, where you clear the hallways of their ghosts, some that may come in the forms of your parents. But don't worry, this is a big full house, and there's trauma from all places. And with each hallway cleared, the mansion becomes a bit brighter, a bit safer to walk down those old, once scary hallways. And of course, if it ever got too scary, there was Mario Sunshine to brighten things up. Get it? Mario Sunshine? It did bring relief for me, like a SpongeBob episode after a scary movie before bed. What, no SpongeBob this week? Okay. This era also brought classics I'd play for the next 2 decades. To name a few, we got Super Monkey Ball and its potentially better side mode, Monkey Target. We got the arcade sports games, NHL Hitz. Keep rolling, 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 rolling. Hey! Long live my made-up franchise that I created in high school called The Joints. Backyard Baseball and the heroics of Keisha Phillips and Pablo Sanchez. MLB Slugfest and man, that commentary. SSX Tricky and Snowboard Kids. It's Trick Rock Rock. Mario Tennis and the iconic intro sounds. Mario Strikers and these celebrations. NFL Street 2, and if you didn't use a wide receiver or quarterback, then you weren't really playing the game. Sports games, for me, I wasn't in it for the MLB The Show, HD graphics. I wanted ease and fun, and boy, did those games bring it. But how could we ignore the fighting game, Super Smash Bros. Melee? 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 I called it Melee. Anyway, the sequel to the N64 classic, still regarded as one of the best games of all time. So many late nights, so much competition. I was better than almost all my friends. Almost. Growing from praying for Kirby's bottom slams to hit somebody to nailing Marth counterattacks was a major development in my life cycle. There were so many random games here that I may be missing, like Star Wars, which was a classic, Kingdom Hearts, where I could never get past the 3-headed dog on the Hercules level. I remember bonding with a kid on a chairlift over this same shared struggle. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle 2 and the Chow World. Oh, those chows. Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Rayman, Banjo-Kazooie, and Ty and his boomerang. There was Pikmin 2 and these hilarious commercials and great battles over orbs. Who could forget Kirby Air Ride? And everyone knows the funnest mode was City Trial, or even better, Free Ride. Hanging out in these hidden areas for hours, and yeah, just revisiting these spaces feels like walking past an old playground. Hmm. There was alien hominoid eating and blasting FBI agents, and all the many failed attempts late Saturday nights to beat this game that never happened. Hmm. And perhaps my favorite game all time, Paper Mario and the Thousand-Year Door. At this point, I was 9. I could at least read, and together over the phone late nights after school with a friend, I progressed through the game, traveling to distant lands, solving mysteries, meeting partners along the way, and ultimately overcoming the Shadow Queen. Some special memories. And yeah, so what is nostalgia but both love and mourning? It's been abused today by capitalist and consumerist culture. What's new? But yeah, in its pure form, it's the warmth and safety of the past, mixed with a sad awareness that the past is no more, that there's no jumping back in that river again. It won't be the same. Even if I rebooted the game today or gave it to my future kids to play, I'll never again be in 4th grade, needing that escape and having that joy of exploring that world for the first time with a new friend, not far behind on his own, and suddenly, in a new class that I switched into that year, I felt less alone. And that was sweet. And so yeah, nostalgia is bittersweet, because not all these relationships were meant to last. Times change, needs change, people change, but it doesn't take away from how much those moments meant and how special they were. Thank you. Thank you. There were a lot of random branded games, Toy Story 2, Shrek 2, Spider-Man 2, and the SpongeBob game. It's a game I can talk about. They were okay. Swinging through the city of Spider-Man was fun, but they never gave me the joy their source material did, except, oh my god, Simpsons Hit and Run, what a game. Eat my dust, Dust Eater, or Homer running, Bikini Zone, chafing. And to wrap up the Gamecube, at least during the era it was still producing games, we got this portable screen, which was epic for long car rides, or even airplanes if they had that car plug-in thing. Did I mention I brought my video games on every vacation? People thought I was addicted. The ironic thing was that I almost never played alone on these vacations. I loved hosting, I loved facilitating. If anything, I was sacrificing and schlepping for the betterment of the Kahal, the group as a whole. And as my old friends know, this certainly translated into future schlepping of other vital things for vacations and bachelor parties. And even when I was religious, I schlepped the Torah once on a camping trip. Where were we? Mario Baseball. It holds a special place. This was my brother and I's most played game together. There were other games. Helly asked me to be his best man in his wedding over a game of NHL Hitz. And yeah, I played Mario Baseball with other people too, certainly. Some of whom, I will admit, beat me more often than I did them. Miss you, bud. See, these games were not just safe places in themselves, but it was also the safe people I played with, who brought me relief from a constantly demanding world. It was a space that didn't demand much, and gave back so much more. To borrow a line from last week, it was there for me. Hell, even more so than the Mets. Their season was only 162 games long, and video games didn't blow leads or lose games on errors. And if they did, there was always extra lives and the reset button. But yeah, it's heavier. It's a heavier one to discuss. Ultimately, the time my brother and I played the most was on Saturday mornings and or holidays, and when I became religious, that was a conflict. And a bigger argument ended up, it was one of the last things I had cut out before I was fully Sabbath observant, but cut it I did. It was a great game with some great memories, and we move on. There was more computer games, Club Penguin, Bubble Trouble, Roller Coaster Tycoon, The Sims, and of course, November 2004, the release of the Nintendo DS, PictoChat and Sleepaway Camps, Mario Kart Wireless Play, New Super Mario Bros., with my game mysteriously vanishing in camp. I am still mad about that. Also, shout out to the people who realized games weren't just about winning. They were about playing. And RIP to all those Nintendogs who haven't been cleaned or fed in almost 20 years. Oh God. Around this time, video games moved from more of a thing I did with family to my own thing. We originally shared a DS, my siblings and I. They were more into the Sims game, but eventually I kind of took ownership of it on my own. And I also got a PSP for my birthday. I remember ripping open these discs, not realizing they were supposed to stay in their case. Shout out to Ape Escape, great launch game. And yeah, there were other random games. Donkey Kong Congas, anyone? It was a lot easier for me than Guitar Hero. Give me a break. And sadly, one of the many classic video game accessories I lost in a flood in 2012. But we can rewind a bit from there, and it was November 19th, 2006, and I've been waiting for the hyped-up Nintendo Wii. The Mets had just lost the NLCS, but I had bigger things to worry about. I woke up at 4 a.m. that morning and ran to wake up my dad. He said, "Mo, the store doesn't open till 10. We have time." We went at around 7 or 8. As we approached Toys R Us in Bay Ridge, an employee walked out of the store, got on a podium, and announced, "We have just handed out our last ticket to claim a Wii. If you did not receive a ticket, please go home." I was a moment too late. Brutal. A month later, an eternity and kid waiting for video game time, I got the Wii for Hanukkah. Did I mention Hanukkah was one of my favorite holidays? I ran around the house screaming. I think I knocked over some food being prepared for dinner in my excitement. But yeah, the release of the Wii, it took the world by storm. Hell, even my parents were playing. Who could forget Wii Sports and this iconic music? Tennis, bowling. My friend breaking my remote in the first week I had it because he was too lazy to wear the goddamn wrist strap. Come on! And who could forget the Mii's? It really made these systems feel like they had a whole world going on inside of them, and made for some funny moments in games like Wii Baseball when the monstrosity of a character you made showed up playing for the other team. The Wii also brought some amazing adventures for me. Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess was my intro to that series, a game that was somewhat disappointing for fans of the legendary Ocarina of Time, and kind of forgotten with the recent Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom classics. But for me, it was a game that I loved. And I was finally able to work on my courage, overcoming real fears of certain locations like this mummy temple in the desert. Also, in this game was a lot of dark places to bring to light and freeing old ghosts. And sure, I spent hours just looking for bugs for this little girl, but that was half the fun of these games. I didn't need to play the story out. I could just be present, enjoying a world full of monsters, but safer than the monsters in my own. Shout out to random fun Wii games, Rayman, Rabbids, and WarioWare, and all the other wacky shovelware that I played. And of course, who could forget Mario Galaxy and this amazing space adventure, or the great times in Coconut Mall and the rest of Mario Kart Wii. And before Mario Kart Wii came out, playing Mario Kart 64 on the Virtual Console with DK Jungle Parkway, or chasing this train in a desert level for fun. I remember breaking my thumb and needing surgery in 2007. My cousin gifted me Mario Strikers Charged. My left thumb was in a giant cast, but I learned to play with 4 fingers. 4 fingers do not replace a thumb, but damn was this game fun. And it even had fake newspaper articles updating your progress and or failures. Yes, how could we talk about video games? How could we talk about video games and not talk about the feeling walking into GameStop while strolling through the mall and just finding a hidden gem? Like picking up one of my favorite games all time, MLB Power Pros 2008, that I still play to this day. Hidden underneath its simple graphics are tons of modes, deep gameplay mechanics, and wild storylines. Like you can play as the Mets and actually win, or make up a player and live out their life with dating and friendship and mortgages. I'm not kidding. and even the possibility of making children if you get enough massages from your wife. This game, yeah, there's a mode that lets you make an expansion team. I was able to make this Hawaii baseball team. It's one of the hardest modes because you're handed an awful team of made-up rookies. But I took these scrubs all the way to Game 7 of the World Series and lost on my last out, striking out with my pitcher because I ran out of pinch hitters, and that was sad. But I'll always have this moment earlier in that season where I was playing against the Diamondbacks. Last game of the season, winner takes the division, loser is out, and with 2 outs, down a run, my best hitter, who I traded for in the middle of the season, Benjamin Lina, hit a 2-run homer for his record 89th homer of the season, and it was reminiscent of the Alonso or the Lindor homer, and I was just screaming so loud. My roommates came to check on me, and I was okay. I was in elation. But alas, the run ended in failure. I do wonder if I'll ever win a World Series with an expansion team in that. The Wii. Yeah, it collects dust in most people's basements if they haven't thrown it out yet. 101 million of these were sold, with great games like Wii Sports Resort. Nothing like flying through Wahoo Island. Yeah, that's a real name. Around this time came the rise of mobile games, arguably a popular genre since Tetris on the Game Boy, but yeah, shout out Doodle Jump. Fun run during class, anyone? I was worried mobile games would totally destroy the modern console and deprive the world of big, creative, deep games, but that hasn't happened yet, and that kind of feels good. The Wii U happened with great games like, well, there's not much to discuss with this one. I mean, I bought it at the midnight launch at my local GameStop. I was a super fan at that point and convinced some folks to buy it too. I think I was literally in a Nintendo ambassador program, or was that for the 3DS? That was a thing too. I remember bringing it to high school and showing off the augmented reality capabilities, shooting down strange faces appearing through the camera to look like they are in the room that I was actually in. Do any games actually use AR today? Soon enough, I was in college, and most video game playing with friends was around older games, Nintendo 64 or Gamecube, and it was, I think, a telling transition. Yes, the older games were arguably better, timeless classics, but I also think many of the relationships I had through those old games were rooted in the past. They were stagnant in a way, built and founded and maintained less and less so on current and developing interest, and more so on just the longevity of the friendship itself and past connections. I wrote a whole thing around that time on wanting to be more like the uniqueness of new Wii games, that is, Wii games made for the Wii and its unique capabilities, and less like a Wii only being used to play old GameCube games, or just remakes. It really reflected my view on life at the time, and somewhat even now. The Wii U did have Super Mario 3D World. I beat this game fully, including this last level. I grinded hours with an old friend on. I remember the ending vividly the moment I beat it, and this little thank you message that they leave for you at the end. I kind of loved how video games did that. Acknowledge the work and hours you put into it. It was like a little nod from the developers, and part of me hopes that when I die, there's just like a screen from the grand developers that says, thanks for playing. I remember early college watching my roommate play Grand Theft Auto. I had just eaten mushrooms, not the Mario kind, and I was crying for the families of the people he so casually ran over with his car. Oh God. Playing Madden was okay, but I didn't really care for it. I mean, I liked Madden 11 on the Wii, but yeah, I was more into the arcade style NFL Blitz and NFL Street. There was Pokemon Go. Wow, I was ready to quit my summer job and just catch Pokemon. And you know something is popular when your grandma is talking about the Pokemans. That was a fun time. Fast forward, and we hit the later stage of my gaming life, and a commercial for the Switch came out, and it looked amazing. There was this point in my senior year of college where I flew back to make it in time just for the launch of the Switch. I was going to wait all night online at the Nintendo store in New York City. My flight got delayed from Boston, and I was running from the airport the second we, or the plane the second we landed. I didn't want a repeat of 2006 and the Wii, and I didn't have any checked luggage, so I went straight from the plane, through the airport, to the taxi, to Manhattan, jumped out of the cab, ran towards the line. I'm calling my friend who's there already, and he's telling me they're not giving him an extra bracelet. I need to get there myself to be physically in person. And I get there, and he points to the guy, and I run over to him, and I see that the guy with the bracelets was talking to these people, and they just had this sad look on their faces. And I asked him what happened, and I realized it was too late. Boy. Not to be turned away, I looked online and realized the console was going for more than $100, its launch price. And so I basically offered that to people on the line, and somebody gave me their bracelet. Yay. Yay, privilege. And so I got the bracelet and waited in the cold in early March in New York City from around 6 p.m. to well past midnight. The feeling of walking into the Nintendo store, by the time I got in, it was 4 a.m. and it was amazing. Like I was walking into the Garden of Eden, but soon the dream became a nightmare. And they were going to turn me away because the bracelet I bought was the wrong color for the spot in line I was. I didn't realize they did that. And I had waited almost 10 hours on that line in the cold. But in that time, I made some friends. And one by one, these strangers that I had met went to the manager of the store, saw what was happening, and despite barely knowing me, were pleading my case. And they were like, he was with us the whole time. He deserves a Switch tonight. And it was deeply kind and a small showing of the potential unity of video game communities. And I was able to get my Switch that night. What a moment. Breath of the Wild. Wow. So many ways to die. And everything I loved about a game. You could just get lost in it. But it wouldn't be Nintendo without the random, quirky, gimmick games at launch. Shout out to 1-2 Switch and the great times playing this with friends. And all this time I waited and waited each year during Nintendo's conferences or Nintendo Directs for them to announce a sequel to Paper Mario more like the first two that I had loved so much. And it just never came. Shout out to this random game Golf Story, which helped fill some of those quirky RPG vibe gaps for me. And yeah, my Nintendo Switch was a really helpful part of my life at that time. It helped cope with some of the loneliness of the early stages of my doctorate program, particularly when I was staying alone in hotels on Long Island because the commute was too brutal. I think I was playing the classic Spyro game at the time, and a warm one for my heart. There was also, of course, Mario Odyssey. That was so much fun and certainly hit all the nostalgia buttons. And how could I leave out Fortnite? I wasn't that into it. I didn't like shooters, and I got nervous from all the wild competition. But it was fun. It felt kind of like Capture the Flag mixed with hide and go seek, and just everyone involved. It was fun when it was really big. I think it's still going on. And yeah, that's really just the gist. I don't play much games anymore. In a crossword moment at the very start of the pandemic, I was invited from Mario Party and joints by a friend's apartment. And my dad threatened that if I went to my friend's apartment, I would have to quarantine and couldn't come home for at least 2 weeks. I half debated quarantining in Manhattan with my friends for the entire pandemic. My family had an apartment nearby that I could use, and it was really tempting. But ultimately, I decided to come home. It was kind of part of a general life directional shift that I've referenced before, where I leaned more into wholesome healing like running, yoga, therapy, and cold dips. And I don't think video games can't fit into a healthy lifestyle. They can be relatively harmless, escapes, puzzle solving, adventures, and bonder of friends. And obviously there are those that use video games harmfully and remove themselves from life, and video games can become an obsession. And I don't think they ever necessarily were for me, even if I gave over 2,000 hours to MLB Power Pros. I also question friend groups whose entire connection is basically video games or sports. I mean, they could be amazing at bonding people, and there certainly are rare spaces where men are allowed to show emotions. And for people that are passionate about these things, who am I to judge? But I also don't remember having many heart-to-hearts while playing video games or watching sports. Yes, there's a beautiful shared presence during these things, but it's not a full emotional shared presence. it can play a role and be a part of a balanced relational dynamic, but there's a great song about a teddy bear and the song asks, how long can we hold on just to stay behind? It's tragic, it's sad, letting go of old bears, old friends, old toys. It's the people, it's the moments that fill the spaces that were my life. I don't think they are part of my optimal life now, but it doesn't mean I didn't appreciate it and don't hold love for those times. When I see Mario, I realize a day will come where I played my last Mario game, where I had my last Mario party. I don't think that day has fully come, but it's on its way, and yeah, thank you, Mario. Thank you. And so one of the last games I fully played was ironically a collection of old games. One in particular was the Mario 3D All-Star Collection, and that I played during the pandemic. After all those years, I was finally able to get 120 stars on my own. I only had to look up one of them. Goddamn, who knew you needed to catch the damn bunny twice? Either way, I felt really good. And Moses would have been proud. During my time in the religious world, video games kind of faded away. My mentor would tell me that they'll have a purpose one day and you'll use them maybe in therapy or something, and I kind of hated that approach. Like, why did they need to have future applicability to have been worth my time? Video games were special for me and were amazing when they were. And even if I never used them again and they had nothing to do with my future, the space they held for me was extraordinarily meaningful. I vividly remember an acupuncture session when I was experiencing stomach pain, and I pictured literal video game characters like Sonic and Mario just showing up to help clear and heal my gut. These characters meant a lot for me and to me throughout my life, and were there for me through a lot of it. Eventually, they sadly just sank into the gay pile. I remember at one meal in the ultra-Orthodox community in Lawrence, a religious mother asked me to explain to her young son why video games were problematic. And I looked at this religious kid and I explained to him how the Torah comes straight from Moshe at Sinai, and Mario, what, he comes from some guy from Japan playing with bugs in his backyard. Who would you rather be connected to? It's been some time since then, and I'm so proud to have connected to the creations of that Japanese man playing with bugs in his backyard. Thank you, Miyamoto-san. Just before I left, they finally re-released my favorite Paper Mario games for the Switch. It was bittersweet. Guiding one of my nephews through some of it, I was tempted to play on my own, and I even bought the game, but I never opened it. And I left my Switch behind before getting on the plane out of New York. And yeah, I certainly didn't think I'd play any games here in Hawaii. Who needs Breath of the Wild when you could explore the magnificent places in the real world? Or who needs Pokemon Snap when there's marvelous creatures to see all around you? Or Farmville when you could, I don't know, farm and make actual food? But despite all this, I still found space in my heart and perhaps a nostalgic yearning, and I ended up downloading the Dolphin Wii emulator and have been playing some old favorites. It has been fun and really great for my breaks between some of the heavier videos or between phases. Most of my connection to video games these days comes from watching YouTube videos of people playing and not playing myself. And that's kind of ironic because it's, for me, like a full circle to how my video game career started all those years ago. I think there's still space for video games in anyone's life, looking for relief, adventure, connection, exploration, fun. It can be a good space, and it certainly is not without its risks. So please play responsibly, my friends. And yeah, there are entire communities built around these things. People who do genuinely feel connected, and I'm certainly not going to be one to take that away from people. And I will always have a lot of gratitude in my heart for the wonderful moments that video games have brought me. So will I ever visit Nintendo World? Part of me would love to be there, and part of me would likely be hit with a reminder of my current age and state of life, and feel weird about how something I deeply loved has been so commodified. But don't these Mario-themed burgers just look so good? Okay, maybe I'd cry a lot, but don't judge me. And so yeah, that's where I'm at now. Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming on this ride with me. And don't forget to play today. In video games or just in life in general, we're all gonna die, right? Maybe this is all just one big game. Who knows? All I know is that I want to make sure I enjoy it before my end credits roll. I hope you can do the same and make this life a game worth playing. Thanks for playing with me, and have a magically delicious day. Thanks for playing.